So there I was, in the month of May. I was flying back home after my cousin's wedding. We tore that dance floor up so hard that my brand new suit pants ripped right down the middle. That was a good night. Unfortunately, the following day had a noticeable drop in quality as I was in the middle of white knuckle gripping my chair while inside a giant shaking metallic death coffin that was currently 40,000 feet in the air. If that was too subtle for you, I'm not a fan of flying. However, suddenly and without warning, something strange happened. I got the idea for a story. Really, it was just a single scene. After that though, for almost the entirety of my 5-hour flight, I was writing on my tablet. A short story that eventually became the first chapter. The story of an entity born in the land of dreams, trying and failing to escape the dream world of the one who dreamed them. This first interaction only gave me a glimpse into this world, but when I finished, I had more questions than answers. So I decided that I would spend the following month of June turning this one scene into a full story. 'Cause I was desperate to know, why did a pink elephant block their way? Hello, welcome to the channel. Today I want to talk about the lessons I learned while trying to write my first ever book in a single month. In the background, you will see me trying to draw an idea I had for a potential book cover. Nothing serious. I was just mostly testing tools I never use. I'm not thinking about publishing or anything yet. I just needed something to play in the background. Now, I'm sure I can guess what a lot of people's first question is based on my title. If you've never written a book before, why did you give yourself only a month to do this? Well, the answer is pretty simple, actually. This is not the first time I've attempted to write a book. I love stories regardless of genre or medium. I have a degree in animation, but I believe some story ideas have a medium they are more suited for than others. Also, trying to make an animated feature of any size is like 10 times harder, especially on your own. Not that writing a book is easy either. Every time I've tried before, I could never get past the outlining stage. I would end up losing all motivation for the story, and the outline would be left mostly unfinished. So I thought maybe if I gave myself a deadline, I could at least brute force my way into finishing it. 1 month also seemed doable because I knew the story I was trying to write wasn't gonna be super long. I decided that this would be a novella, not a full novel. If you don't know the difference, basically it's just the word count. A novella is much smaller. I didn't know this was a thing either until I read the Murderbot Diaries series and it became one of my favorite book series of all time. I didn't choose for it to be a smaller book though because I thought it would be easier. I just thought it made sense because of the premise. To me, the longer you spend in a setting, the more grounded things become, and that just didn't feel right for a story that takes place in the land of dreams. The wild and random nature of it all should be a feature, not a bug. Anyway, after what I just said, I think the next question is also kind of obvious. If outlining has been so hard for me, then how did I overcome it this time? 'Cause spoiler alert, I did, and well, funny enough, that answer was once again pretty simple. I just skipped making an outline altogether, which felt kind of taboo in a way because I watch a lot of BookTube and there are so many videos on outlining. I've heard of being either a plotter or a pantser, but as you can clearly see, I don't wear pants. Also, a lot of videos endorse outlining even if you are a pantser, so I still thought it was important regardless. I think the core of this argument makes sense because the point of an outline is to help give direction and structure. Where is this story going? If you don't know, then of course writing it will be difficult. I'm not an expert at this though, so I'm probably not the best one to explain it. Look at you. You tried to write one book and suddenly you think you can teach writing. Anyway, I had no outline, but I did have direction. The story I wrote on my flight already gave me most of what I needed. I had 2 central characters, the dream and the dreamer, and I had a plot based on one of those characters' goals. the dream was trying to escape from the dreamer. And because of that goal, I had two potential ways the story could end. The dream would either succeed or they would fail. The rest of the story is just about the journey to that point. When it comes to outlining, I feel like I have to make a lot of decisions before I even start writing the book. What appeals to me about stories is all the potential possibilities, the uncertainty of what happens next. Even if I can already guess how it's going to end, discovering how we get to that point is part of the fun for me. And coincidentally, pantsers are also known as discovery writers, so fine, I'll go buy some pants. So yeah, taking away what made me love consuming stories was, unsurprisingly, making it harder for me to write my own. But there was still something I felt I was missing. Yes, I had direction, but I was still missing structure. Everyone knows about the hero's journey at this point, and I hate it. I hate the idea that every story can be put into neat little boxes of steps. It takes away a lot of the magic for me. Different from knowing how a magician does a magic trick, because that still feels like an impressive feat of skill and performance. Earlier this year, I read Save the Cat, and it had a similar effect for me. But it also made me acknowledge the importance of story structure, because structure is important to getting things done, which I knew I needed with my timeline being so limited. So I found this story structure guide list and went over each until I found the one that fit what kind of story I was trying to make. You could argue that this is technically an outline, but I wrote only like 1 to 3 words with each point, and I never fully filled it out anyway. But with that, the planning stage was finally done, and it was time to get to writing. There was only one lesson I learned while actually writing, and I learned it early on. Just keep writing. At first, I kept going back to edit what I had already written, only to realize I ain't got time for that.
Ain't nobody got time for that.
So from then on, I made sure whenever I started writing, I would do everything I could to just keep writing. I wrote, and I wrote, and I wrote. I didn't care about grammar. I didn't care about writing in complete sentences. I didn't even care if the sentences were even coherent. I just kept writing. I would ignore or leave placeholders for the parts I had trouble with and just focused on progressing the story. A lot of earlier chapters were less than 1,000 words, but as I kept writing more and more chapters, the word count just kept going up. The more I wrote, the more clear the story became. The story grew, gained layers, matured like cheese. I know people usually say fine wine here, but I don't like wine. I like cheese. I had remembered that even though I set out to write a book in a month, it doesn't have to be perfect the first time through. It just has to be the first draft. I didn't know I had such a get it right the first time mentality until I was forced to ignore it. If I wasn't working with a deadline, I don't know if I would have realized any of this. Wasn't all sunshine and rainbows though. There were moments where I had no choice but to stop and think about what happens next. The middle part of the book, as I had once heard before and was now experiencing, was definitely the hardest part to write. I also didn't end up writing every day. My part-time job that was giving me full-time hours decided that very same month to switch me from the closing shift to the opening shift. An opening shift that happens to start before the sun rises. I've had multiple jobs with similar hours to this, so the time itself wasn't necessarily a problem. However, my body did take quite a bit of time to adjust to the new schedule. Also this month, I decided to participate in Kaijun, which is a drawing challenge like Inktober. I already made a video about that, and I'll probably leave a link to it at the end of this video, but basically, I ended up stretching myself pretty thin that month. The other issue was that while I've been hyping up deadlines, I know from past experience the closer I get to the end, my motivation tends to lessen, not grow. I ended up running out of time and having to force myself to write the ending in a way that left me feeling unsatisfied. So I technically did finish, but it was certainly under the desired word count, and definitely had a lot that still needed to be added. Which I was feeling bummed about at first, but over time, that feeling has changed. I'm willing to give myself a lot more credit. I learned so much about myself that month, And a lot of what I've learned has carried over into other aspects of my creative process. I mean, the fact that I was able to release 2 videos in a single month for the first time ever should tell you that my scriptwriting process has gotten faster. Am I becoming a real YouTuber? Let's not get hasty. People would have to watch my videos for that to be the case. Anyway, the drawing's done. I know I didn't give much details on the story, and that's because as a first draft, I still expected to go through a bunch of changes. Still a lot of work to be done. But I do have a hypothetical back of the book summary I can read. What if dreams were alive? What if, in order to make your dreams come true, you have to convince a dream to become real? What if a dream doesn't want to become real? That's it. That's all I got. Thank you for watching. You know the whole like and subscribe spiel. Have a good morning, noon, or night. Whatever time it is for you, I just hope you have a good one. Later.